The sound of the chamber door locking behind them was like a vault closing on their last breath. A deep, metallic groan echoed through the red-lit cavern, and when silence followed, it felt heavier than the sound itself. No one moved at first. The air carried a weight that made every inhale sharp, as if the ship itself wanted them to suffocate. Theo broke the silence, his voice low but cutting through. "So, guess this isn't the gift shop exit." His attempt at levity was thin, almost instinctive, but it managed to release the tension for only a flicker of a second. His eyes were locked ahead, the humor not reaching them as the figure standing in the center of the chamber shifted its head toward them. The humanoid construct pulsed faintly with red lines running across its body like veins of fire. It stood unnaturally still, too precise, too balanced, like it wasn't made to imitate but to surpass. Lena whispered, "It's waiting." She was barely audible but everyone heard. The figure moved then, one step forward, silent but shuddering the ground, and Reed's hand instinctively lifted in a stop signal. His other hand tightened on the plasma rifle slung at his side, though he didn't raise it. Rules first. Observation before action. He wanted control, but his shoulders betrayed the tremor he suppressed. Niles checked his scanner, frustration already painted on his face. Its reading is nothing. Not metal, not energy, not biological. It's just there. He smacked the side of the scanner once as if force could bend it to reason. This thing doesn't exist by our definitions. The weight of his words pressed deeper into the room. The black ship wasn't only showing them advanced design anymore, it was rewriting the meaning of presence itself. And the Codex, the monolith they had thought they were beginning to understand, had now made its intention perfectly clear. This wasn't another puzzle or shifting maze. This was confrontation. The red light brightened around the construct. Its chest expanded, almost like a breath, but mechanical, deliberate, and sharp. Reed raised his rifle fully now, voice firm but low. "No one engages unless I say so. Keep distance." He turned his head just enough to look at Theo. "And you stay behind cover this time." Theo gave a quiet smirk, his voice softer than usual, stripped of bravado. "Sure thing, boss. I'll just be right here, behind this indestructible wall of optimism." His sarcasm carried weight not for humor this time, but for grounding, a rhythm that kept panic from spilling over. The floor trembled again. The construct tilted its head as if listening to something beyond them. Then, in a motion that defied any human speed, it closed half the distance. A sound like stone grinding against stone rattled the chamber as it moved, and all at once the crew shifted into instinctive formation. Ava pulled Lena toward cover, Tez cursed under his breath, and Niles stumbled before catching himself. Reed's rifle was up, his stance perfect, though his breath had grown ragged. "Hadrian, do you read?" Reed barked into his comm, only static answered. The commander's calm voice from orbit was gone, severed like a lifeline cut in the dark. Lena's lips pressed tight, and for the first time, Theo's humor vanished completely. His hands moved to his sidearm, not out of panic but calculation. His eyes flicked between the figure and the shifting walls of the chamber, already studying exits, already mapping possibilities. The Codex wasn't watching anymore. It was moving its pieces. And the crew, sealed in this living labyrinth, had just been forced into the game's next stage. The chamber floor jolted as the construct moved again, its weight not matching its speed. It blurred forward, and Reed had only a breath to shout, "Move!" before the thing's arms swept out. The motion wasn't wild or clumsy, it was precise, like a blade slicing air. The wave of force that followed slammed into the wall where Niles had been standing a heartbeat earlier. Fragments of stone exploded outward, showering the room in shards. Niles hit the ground hard, rolling, gasping as dust filled his lungs. His scanner clattered across the floor, sparking once before dying in silence. "Contact! Contact!" Tez roared, already unloading a burst of plasma fire into the construct. The bolts lit the chamber in rapid strobe, searing white against red, but when they struck, the energy bent around the figure's surface like light curving through glass. No damage. No sound. Just that same slow, pulsing glow. "Are you kidding me?" Tez shouted, his voice a mix of rage and disbelief. Theo grabbed him by the arm and yanked him sideways, pulling both of them into cover behind a half-broken column. "Screaming at the invincible death robot is officially not a strategy," Theo snapped, his voice sharper than his usual quips. He leaned out for half a second, eyes calculating angles, watching how the construct's glow shifted with each strike. Reed barked orders, his tone ironclad despite the storm. "Suppressive fire only. Keep it distracted while we regroup." Ava status on Niles. Ava was already dragging Niles behind another slab of stone, her hands quick and sure. Blood trickled from a gash at his temple where the debris had struck. He's breathing, but he's out cold. She pressed fabric against the wound, forcing it steady. Her voice cracked once, but her hands didn't tremble. The construct turned its head again, focusing. Its movements weren't random, they were targeted. It wasn't fighting like a predator, it was eliminating like a machine that had run this simulation 1,000 times before. Theo's mind was racing. He crouched low, his pistol untouched in his hand, his focus fixed on the glow that pulsed across its chest and arms. "It's not ignoring our fire," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone. "It's absorbing it, redirecting it." His eyes narrowed, the words sharper now. "Which means we need to stop feeding it." Lena, crouched near him, caught the tone and leaned in. "What do you see?" Theo's gaze didn't shift from the figure. Every time it's hit, the glow sharpens. Like it's storing energy, not deflecting it. "If we keep shooting, we're charging it." He looked at Reed across the chamber, voice cutting above the noise. "Cease fire. Stop giving it fuel." For a split second, Reed hesitated. His soldier's instincts screamed against silence in the face of threat, but he trusted Theo's mind in moments like these. His hand raised. "Hold fire." The room plunged into a different kind of tension. The only sound now was the construct's faint hum, and the ragged breaths of the crew pressed against stone. The figure stilled, its glow dimming slightly as if disappointed. "Yeah," Theo muttered, his lips pressing into a tight line. "That's what I thought. It needs us. It wants us to keep panicking." The relief was fleeting. The construct tilted its head again, but instead of dimming completely, the glow spread down its arms, gathering at its hands. The air shifted, heating, warping. Lena's eyes widened. "Theo, it doesn't just need us. It's adapting." The construct slammed its hand into the ground. A shockwave erupted, ripping across the chamber. Columns cracked, the floor split like glass, and everyone was thrown violently back. Reed hit the wall and slid down, his rifle tumbling from his grip. Ava shielded Niles with her body, teeth gritted as stone scraped across her arms. Theo rolled, coughing, pain screaming through his shoulder where he landed. He forced himself up, ignoring it. His humor was gone, replaced with clarity. "Okay," he spat, eyes locked on the thing as it advanced again. "Now it's not just defense. It's offense. Which means our window is closing fast." Reed struggled to his feet, voice hoarse but unyielding. "Then we buy ourselves another one. No matter the cost." And as the construct's glow intensified, bathing the chamber in blood-red light, every single one of them knew this wasn't a puzzle anymore. It was survival. The chamber was shaking in the aftermath of the shockwave, dust still raining down from above like the ruins themselves were weeping. Ava's voice cut through the haze, trembling but strong. "If it can adapt this fast, how do we fight something that keeps rewriting the rules?" Theo spat blood onto the ground, clutching his shoulder as he staggered upright. His usual lopsided grin was nowhere to be seen. His eyes were steady, cold, calculating. By making a move it hasn't seen before. Something it can't predict. Reed wiped blood from his brow and picked up his rifle. He had heard that tone from Theo before, the one that meant humor had been shelved and the razor edge of his mind was in control. "Talk, Theo. We don't have time." Theo scanned the glowing figure. The way its energy shifted, the rhythm of its stance, the unnatural silence that followed each strike. He pointed toward the fractured floor. "Look at the cracks. Every time it channels energy, the ground fractures beneath it. It's not limitless. It's pulling power from somewhere under us." Tess frowned, still catching his breath. "You're telling me the thing's got a power socket in the basement?" "Exactly," Theo replied without hesitation. "We can't beat the construct head-on, but if we overload the channel it's drawing from, we might destabilize the entire connection. Worst case, the floor caves and it takes a trip down without us. Best case." Lena pressed, her knuckles white around her weapon. Theo smirked grimly. "Best case, it fries itself trying to handle more than it can chew. Either way, we live longer than the next 30 seconds. Reed gave a sharp nod. "All right. How do we trigger the overload?" Theo crouched, using his hand to sketch quickly into the dust on the floor. The cracks formed branching patterns like veins, converging near a central point where the glow burned brightest. "That's the node. We need to hit it simultaneously with different kinds of energy, force it to adapt faster than it can process." Tez's eyes lit with a dangerous grin. "Finally, something I can shoot at without being useless." "Correction," Theo said sharply, pointing a finger at him. "Shoot once. Not a barrage. One synchronized strike. Too much and it stabilizes. Too little and it ignores us. We get one shot at this. Ava looked up from where she still shielded Niles, her voice raw. And if it doesn't work? Theo's gaze softened for a moment, just a flicker of humanity beneath the steel. Then we keep buying seconds until someone smarter than me comes up with something better. He paused, then added dryly, or until Reed decides to wrestle it barehanded. That earned a brief, tight smile from Lena, but Reed only shouldered his rifle with silent determination. The weight of leadership pressed harder on him than the stones of the chamber. Positions. We strike on my mark. The crew moved fast, each limping to their places around the fractured node. Lena set her rifle on a cracked ledge, aligning the shot with careful precision. Tez powered up his plasma cannon, muttering under his breath as if coaxing it to behave. Ava dragged Niles further back, refusing to abandon him even if her own safety was in jeopardy. Theo stood closest to the glow, his eyes unblinking as he studied the construct's movements. He wasn't armed with heavy weaponry, just his pistol and his mind, but right now that was enough. He could see the rhythm, the pattern of energy flowing through the ground like a heartbeat. He whispered to himself, "Come on, you smug little machine, show me the gap." The construct tilted its head as if it heard him, then advanced again. Its arms flared with renewed crimson light, preparing another devastating strike. "Now!" Reed roared. The chamber erupted in fire and energy. Tez's plasma cannon spat a beam into the node, Lena's rifle discharged a piercing round laced with magnetic force, and Theo snapped a shot directly into the crack with surgical precision. The impacts met at once, colliding in a violent burst. The ground screamed. The glow surged blindingly bright, the cracks flaring like veins on fire. For a heartbeat the construct froze, its form flickering, its glow stuttering like a broken signal. Then came the backlash. A pulse exploded outward from the node, a dome of raw energy slamming into everything in the chamber. Columns shattered, walls caved, and every crew member was hurled to the floor like rag dolls. Theo hit hard, his ribs groaning in protest. His ears rang, his vision blurred, but he forced his head up. Through the haze of dust he saw it. The construct was staggering. Its movements were less fluid, its glow sputtering unevenly. But it wasn't gone. It was adapting again. Theo's voice rasped, hoarse but steady. "We heard it. Not enough, but we heard it." Reed dragged himself upright, coughing blood. "Then we don't stop. We finish what we started." The chamber was collapsing around them, the air burning, the construct recovering. And the crew, battered and bloodied, knew this fight was only beginning. The moment the backlash faded, the chamber was no longer stable. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling, chunks of stone groaned and rained down in uneven bursts. Dust turned the air into a choking fog, each breath grinding against their throats. Theo pressed a trembling hand against his ribs, his breath shallow. He tried to crack a joke, the familiar instinct twitching on his tongue, but it died there. This wasn't the moment. His gaze locked on the construct, its body flickering in and out of form, as though reality itself couldn't decide if it was solid or just light pretending to be matter. Lena pulled herself behind a fractured column, wiping blood from her forehead. Her eyes darted across the chamber, scanning both the enemy and the collapsing structure. "We're running out of cover. If this place comes down, we're done." Tez snarled, dragging his plasma cannon back into position. "Then we take it down before the ceiling does. If I can just get one clean shot." "No," Theo cut in sharply. His voice carried a weight that silenced even Tez's reckless fire. "You fire blindly, you'll destabilize the entire structure faster than it's already collapsing. We'll be buried alive before that thing even dies." Reed crouched, his rifle steady despite the tremor in his arms. "Options, Theo. Give me something." Theo's eyes scanned the chamber. The glowing veins beneath the floor were weaker now, some already fading after their combined strike. The construct's movements had slowed, but its strike still split stone with every swing. It wasn't indestructible, not anymore. But it was still lethal. He inhaled slowly, forcing clarity through the pain in his ribs. "We need to draw it in close. Force it to commit. It's relying on distance strikes to keep control. If we push it into tight quarters, its power won't matter as much." "And where exactly do you plan to corner a walking storm of energy?" Lena demanded, her voice tight. Theo gestured toward the far wall, where a jagged crack had widened into a half-collapsed alcove. "There. Small space. It won't be able to maneuver at full strength. We drag it in, trap it, and concentrate fire. Simple math." Tez gave a bitter laugh. Simple math? You're asking us to crawl inside a coffin and hope the monster suffocates before we do. Exactly, Theo replied without hesitation. The construct advanced, its head tilting unnaturally as if it had been listening the whole time. Energy coiled around its limbs, the chamber glowing with each step it took. Reed didn't waste another second. Move. Everyone fall back to that alcove. Tez, cover fire. Lena, you and I take left and right angles. Theo, you're on point for the trap. Theo smirked faintly despite the dust caked on his face. Of course I'm bait. Everyone loves throwing me at glowing death machines. Because you keep surviving, Reed shot back, his voice as grim as the situation. The crew moved, limping and stumbling but never hesitating. Tez unleashed short bursts from his cannon, not to kill, but to blind and stagger the construct. Lena's precision shots ricocheted sparks across its shifting form, buying them precious seconds. Theo sprinted toward the alcove, his body screaming with every step. He dove behind a slab of fallen stone, drawing the construct's gaze like a moth to flame. That's right, glow stick, he muttered under his breath. Come and play. The construct's body pulsed violently, then it launched forward, covering the distance in terrifying speed. The ground split where its foot landed, energy surging through the cracks. Theo rolled, barely avoiding the slash of its arm that carved a molten scar into the floor. His pistol barked, round after round slamming into the glowing cracks in its chest. It staggered, not from damage but from the disruption, and that hesitation was all Reed needed. Now! Reed roared. The crew converged inside the alcove, their firepower colliding in a thunderous storm. Plasma, bullets, and raw determination hammered into the construct. The confined space amplified every shot, the chamber rattling like it was tearing itself apart. The construct shrieked, a sound that wasn't mechanical or alive but something twisted in between. Its body lashed out violently, a sweeping arm catching Tez across the chest. He slammed into the wall with a sickening thud, coughing blood as he crumpled. Tez. Ava screamed, but she couldn't move to him, not with the construct still raging inches away. Theo's stomach lurched at the sight, but he forced himself back up, forcing every ounce of focus into his next words. Keep it in the alcove. Don't let it pull back. The fight was brutal, close, every strike threatening to end one of them. Stone cracked, sparks flew, and every heartbeat felt like it could be the last. And yet, the construct was faltering. Its glow flickered erratically now, its body trembling under the relentless assault. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Theo's eyes narrowed, sweat and blood stinging them. We've got it on the ropes. Push harder. Make it break before we do. The crew answered with everything they had left, their combined fire lighting the alcove brighter than the sun. But above them, the ceiling groaned louder, massive stones beginning to shear free. The chamber wasn't going to hold. And they were still inside it. The first boulder tore free with a thunderous crack, smashing into the ground only feet from Reed. The shockwave nearly threw him off balance, his rifle clattering against the wall as he ducked low. Dust and shards of stone rained down like a storm that refused to end. Ceilings coming down. Lena shouted, her voice ragged as she dove to shield Ava from a cascade of debris. Her arm caught the brunt of it, blood streaking down to her wrist, but she pushed Ava forward without hesitation. Theo's lungs burned as he scrambled across the fractured ground. Every step felt like sprinting through quicksand, his ribs screaming in protest. He kept his eyes locked on the construct, still thrashing in the alcove. Its glow was unstable now, the light sputtering like a flame about to be snuffed out. Don't you dare outlast this place, Theo muttered, raising his pistol again. He fired at the cracks in its chest, forcing it back deeper into the alcove. The thing roared, its body convulsing violently, and the entire wall shook as if it might collapse inward. Tez coughed, trying to push himself up from where he'd been thrown. His chest plate was fractured, blood staining his uniform. Ava skidded across the rubble to reach him, dropping to her knees. Tez, stay down. You can't move. Like hell I can't, Tez rasped, spitting blood to the side. He grabbed the cannon that had slipped from his grip, dragging it into position with raw defiance. You think I'm letting that thing walk out of here while I'm still breathing? Theo's jaw tightened. He knew Tez was hanging by threads, but he also knew better than to argue when Tez set his mind. Instead, he shouted over his shoulder, Reed, we need an exit. Now. Reed spun, scanning the chamber through the falling debris. A section of the ceiling had already given way near the eastern wall, revealing a jagged tunnel that sloped upward. It wasn't stable, but it was their only shot. There. Move toward that breach. Lena staggered to her feet, arm hanging limp but eyes burning with focus. "Ava, get Tez up. I'll cover you." "No," Theo said firmly, cutting in as another boulder exploded on the floor behind him. He dragged himself toward the alcove, still firing. "I'll keep it pinned. You get him out." The construct shrieked, lashing out one final time. Its arm struck the stone above Theo, sending a massive slab crashing down. He rolled, barely clearing the edge as the stone split the ground where he had stood. For a moment, the world narrowed to the sound of his own heartbeat. Then he was moving again, staggering toward the others. His pistol clicked empty. He tossed it aside without a second thought, reaching for the rifle strapped to his back. Tez let out a roar that sounded more like pain than strength, firing the cannon point blank into the construct's chest. The blast tore through its glowing core, light spilling out in wild, chaotic bursts. The alcove shook violently, the walls cracking apart. "It's breaking," Reed shouted. But so was the chamber. The entire ceiling groaned, massive fractures racing across it. More chunks fell, crushing pillars and shattering the floor into uneven platforms. The chamber was disintegrating around them. Theo grabbed Ava's arm, yanking her toward the eastern breach. "Go. Drag him if you have to." Ava slung Tez's arm over her shoulders, gritting her teeth as she hauled his much larger frame. Lena stumbled beside them, firing sporadically at the construct's flickering form just to keep its attention split. Reed covered their retreat, every shot from his rifle sharp and precise, his eyes cold and focused despite the chaos. The construct staggered, its body fracturing into shards of light and shadow. With a final, ear-splitting wail, it collapsed inward, vanishing in a violent implosion that blew dust and fire outward like a wave. The shockwave hit them all, throwing the crew forward toward the breach. Theo slammed into the rubble, the world spinning as his head cracked against stone. He forced himself up through sheer will, grabbing Ava's arm again to keep her moving. Behind them, the entire alcove caved in, burying the spot where the construct had stood. The chamber was dying, its structure folding in on itself. Theo didn't dare look back again. He shoved Reed forward, his voice hoarse but unyielding. "Keep climbing. Don't stop for anything." They scrambled through the jagged tunnel, stones slicing at their hands and knees, the roar of collapsing rock chasing them like a predator. The light behind them flickered and vanished as the chamber sealed itself under tons of stone. When they finally stumbled into a narrow corridor beyond, gasping for breath, Tez collapsed fully, unconscious in Ava's grip. His chest still rose and fell, but only just. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by their ragged breathing and the distant groan of the ship shifting. Theo leaned back against the wall, coughing dust, his face pale. "Well," he muttered, voice raw but still carrying that flicker of grit, "remind me never to book another vacation here." But even as he said it, his eyes fixed on the corridor ahead. Because carved into the wall, glowing faintly, was a new symbol. One the Codex hadn't shown them before. And Theo had the sinking feeling this was only the start of something worse. The corridor felt like a throat that had swallowed them whole, narrow and uneven, carved with angles too sharp for any natural passage. The dust clung to their lungs, every breath shallow and scraping. Behind them, the echoes of the chamber's collapse died out like the end of a storm, but none of them dared believe they were safe. The black ship always found ways to remind them safety was an illusion. Ava pressed 2 fingers against Tez's neck, her expression tightening. "Pulse is faint but steady," she said, her voice hoarse from the dust. Blood seeped through the fractures in his armor, staining her gloves. "He needs treatment soon, or he won't last long." Lena tore a strip from her own sleeve, knotting it around Tez's chest to slow the bleeding. Her movements were quick, efficient, but her face betrayed the tension she fought to bury. "If the ship wants to test us, it's pushing too far. Tez isn't a pawn." Reed crouched at the base of the glowing symbol etched into the wall. He didn't touch it, not after what had happened with the last glyphs, but his gaze locked on its shifting patterns. Unlike the Codex's cold black surface, this marking shimmered faintly blue, alive in a way that suggested it was waiting for recognition. "It's not random. It's a directive. Or a warning." Theo had been slumped against the opposite wall, head tilted back, trying to catch his breath. His ribs ached, his vision still blurred from the shockwave. Yet his eyes found the symbol, tracing its edges with something between curiosity and unease. "Great. Another neon sign that probably says, 'Congratulations, you survived the last round. Now please die more creatively this time.'" Lena shot him a look, but it was softened by the exhaustion pulling at her face. "Theo, not now." "Fine," he muttered, raising his hands in mock surrender before coughing hard enough to double over. When he straightened, there was no more humor in his voice. But Reed's right. That thing isn't just decoration. It's a door or a trigger. Maybe both. Reed gave a curt nod. Then we decide if we're willing to open it. If it is a door, it might be our only way forward. If it's a trigger, he trailed off, the weight of the possibility hanging in the air. Ava looked up sharply, her arms still bracing Tez's unconscious body. If we do nothing, he dies here. If we go back, the chamber's gone. So forward's the only choice we've got. The silence that followed was heavy, each of them unwilling to say what lingered unsaid. The black ship was bleeding them dry. Piece by piece. Theo pushed himself upright, leaning heavily on the wall. His eyes burned with a quiet defiance that seemed new, sharper, less careless than before. Then forward it is. But if this thing tries to eat me, I'm filing the world's weirdest complaint. Reed stepped closer to the symbol. Lena, can you read it? She studied the glowing lines, her fingers hovering just shy of touching them. Not fully. But it feels like it's alive. Almost like the Codex itself, but fragmented. If I had to guess, she exhaled slowly, it's an initiation. The collapse wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the next phase. Theo's smirk faded. Fantastic. So we've basically passed the warm-up. Reed's eyes narrowed. Ready yourselves. Once we cross this line, there's no going back. He reached out, his palm hovering inches above the symbol. The glow pulsed, brighter, almost eager, like it recognized their hesitation. Ava braced Tez tighter, Lena steadied her breath, Theo clenched his fists. And when Reed finally pressed his hand against the mark, the corridor shook, the walls around them rippling as if made of liquid stone. The floor beneath them dropped. They plunged downward, weightless, their screams swallowed by the dark, the symbol's glow stretching into infinity around them like veins of light. The Codex was pulling them into its next game. The fall ended as suddenly as it began. Their bodies slammed onto something not solid, not liquid, but a strange in-between surface that rippled like glass under pressure. Ava gasped as Tez's limp form slipped from her grasp, only for the ground itself to rise in jagged ridges, cradling him as if the Codex refused to let him be lost just yet. Reed pushed himself upright, every muscle aching from the impact. Report, he barked, his voice rough. I'm breathing, Lena muttered, coughing against the bitter taste of iron and stone in the air. Barely. Theo rolled to his side, clutching his ribs. He didn't joke this time. His gaze flicked to Tez, then to the jagged horizon ahead. The entire place stretched in fractured geometry, endless shards of black and blue jutting up like frozen waves. The sky wasn't a sky at all, but a hollow dome pulsing faintly with veins of light, as if the Codex had peeled back its own skin to reveal what lay beneath. Ava hovered protectively over Tez, her trembling hands checking his pulse again. Relief crossed her face when she felt it, weak but present. He's still with us. But I don't know for how long. Reed scanned their surroundings. The shard field wasn't still. It shifted in slow, grinding movements, spires reconfiguring like an enormous puzzle. The ground beneath their feet quivered, threatening to split open with every motion. This isn't a place we can rest. We move now. Lena's eyes tracked the moving shards, her expression pale. Do you see it? She whispered. Everyone followed her gaze. Far ahead, perched on one of the larger spires, was something that should not have been alive, but undeniably was. A figure hunched forward, skeletal but massive, its body threaded with the same glowing veins as the Codex walls. Its head turned slowly, unnaturally, until two hollow eyes locked onto them. Theo's voice was barely audible. Oh how! The figure rose, shards cracking under its weight. With each movement, its form distorted, splitting in places and reforming again, as if reality itself couldn't decide how it was meant to exist. Its chest glowed brighter than the rest, a jagged symbol burning there, the same mark Reed had touched to open the corridor. Ava whispered, "It's watching us." "No," Reed said, his voice grim. "It's testing us." The shard field groaned, the spires around them lowering and rising, funneling them toward the creature's perch. There would be no way back, only forward. Theo pushed himself up, his breath ragged, his eyes sharper than they had been all day. Then we'd better not fail the next round. Because whatever that thing is, it looks like the Codex finally decided to fight back directly. The creature moved again, a single hand lifting, clawed and impossibly long. With the motion, the ground beneath the crew split into a path, narrow, treacherous, and leading only to it. Ava glanced at Reed, fear and determination warring in her expression. What do we do? Reed didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed locked on the towering figure ahead, the glow in its chest pulsing in rhythm with the Codex itself. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost a vow. "We face it. Because if we don't, it'll hunt us anyway." And as if hearing him, the creature's hollow mouth split open into something resembling a smile. The shard field roared to life.